We are on our way to Nova Scotia. We're taking a ferry.
You actually have to back your RV onto the ferry.
Watch it out! Well, that was incredible.
That was, talk about once in a lifetime experience. This is the lighthouse that we could see when we came in on the CAT Ferry. We just had a very traditional Acadian meal. Look at that! So Lunenburg was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1995. On our last episode, we wrapped up our coastal Maine road trip in the beautiful Acadian National Park and the resort town of Bar Harbor. And today, we're embarking on an epic trip to Canada with the help of Bay Ferries as their high-speed CAT Ferry returns to service for the first time since 2018. We're Howard and Caitlin Newstates, dog people, food people, adventure people. We've been living on the road for the past 4 years, traveling through North America and beyond. Each week we bring you along with us to show you how to live like a local in every new state or country we visit.
Well, good morning from Bar Harbor.
It is a very exciting day because we're doing something we've never done before.
We're taking the RV on a ferry, and not just any ferry, it's the CAT Ferry, which is a high-speed ferry to Nova Scotia.
Yeah, and we'll be there within a matter of a couple of hours. And this whole process is new to us, but they recommend checking in the night before or the morning of your departure so you can get a boarding pass. It's called Express Check-In. And now that we have that, we're all set and ready to go.
Yeah, so now we just show up, I think about 90 minutes beforehand to board and get on the ferry.
We've been hanging out in the parking lot and it is just about time. I'm very excited. And one of the really cool things is that Piper, Ella, and Scout get to stay inside their home while they're on the ferry. So we're gonna get them all situated and ready for the journey. Come on, Scout, let's go. Ed. So Howard and I are driving separately right now because you actually have to back your RV onto the ferry. We are under one reservation and they take the full length of your RV and your car and then a lot for that. You ready to go on the ferry? All right, they've loaded everybody else, so it is go time.
Thanks again. I'll try. Definitely not.
You have the choice to back in your own RV or have somebody else do it. His skills backing up are excellent, and so he's up for the challenge and wants to do it himself, so I get to film that. We'll see how it goes.
I feel great. I feel like all 4 years of our travels have led to this moment. I should not drive this off the dock.
The whole process so far has been very smooth, and every person that we have encountered has been awesome at explaining everything and being patient with us because it's our first time doing this.
Made it.
So if you're a little nervous about it, don't worry. There are people here to help you every step of the way, and it's a seamless process. Thanks, guys.
Right, left.
This crossing will take approximately 3.5 hours. From the entire crew of the CAT, thank you for sailing with us. Enjoy your trip.
Bye, USA.
Hello, Canada.
The CAT Ferry is an incredible ship and will certainly have you traveling across the Gulf of Maine in style and comfort. There are oversized theater seats, workstations, couches for lounging, onboard entertainment, movie screens, and even 2 cafes where you can grab a coffee or a bite to eat. It has a carrying capacity of 866 passengers and 228 vehicles, and is one of 3 identical ships owned by the U.S. Navy.
This one's Sister the Guam, runs around the Sea of Japan with about anywhere from 400 to 800 U.S. Marines on board and all of their equipment and ordnance and training material. The Navy, I believe, saw these vessels attractive for a few reasons. 1, they operate at shallow draft. 2, they can carry a ton of cargo. And 3, they're just super quick.
The CAT Ferry, also known as the Alakai, which is Hawaiian for sea path, began its life as an inter-island ferry in Hawaii before being used in humanitarian relief efforts after the devastating earthquake in Haiti. Then in 2016, the Alakai underwent an extensive refit to get ready for transporting passengers back and forth between the U.S. and Canada.
Because she's American flagged, it must be American crewed. That's why we're here.
11,000 horsepower apiece. We have 4 of them, so it's about 44,000 horsepower water jets.
It's funny to think when you are handling this thing, there's 2 modes of operation at this starboard wing here. These are combinators. When these are online and available to work, you've got 22,000 horsepower on that one and another 22 on this one. So pretty crazy concept. Just crossing Grand Manan Banks. It's really the end of the mouth of the Bay of Fundy traffic scheme there for commercial traffic, headed up into Digby and St. John.
And just like that, our 3.5-hour voyage was coming to an end as we passed by the famous Cape Forchu Lighthouse and Bunker Island before watching the team dock this massive ship at the ferry terminal in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia.
Stern's clear to come in. Stern's clear, copy. AC. AC, copy. How fast? We're going to bring down the rabbit on it.
Roger that. Am I good to clutch out?
Good to clutch out.
Hey. Clutching out!
Well, that was incredible.
That was, talk about once in a lifetime experience.
Thanks to Captain Stu and the entire crew for giving us access to the bridge.
Our faces say it all. It was just awesome. And the crew here is just top notch. They do such a good job.
Yeah, I want a joystick like that for the RV. I want to be able to just ease forward and ease back. That was amazing. He's like literally moving like a foot at a time, forward and back.
Yeah, so impressive. And now we get to go reunite with the doggies, go through customs, and then it's welcome to Canada.
Hi guys. How was your first ferry experience? Oh, I know.
You're so good. Hi. I know, you're so brave. Oh, you're so brave. Missed you. All right. All right, guys.
Good evening.
Welcome to Yarmouth.
Oh,
Your stay.
thank you very much.
That's awesome.
I've never got a greeting gift. Am I good to the right?
Yeah, you're good. That's... Wow.
How about that?
This trip's off to a great start. I think that was one of the fastest border crossings we've had ever.
Well, it feels like the old Canada.
I know.
You know, where it's very friendly, very easy, and you just go about your way and have a great time.
Well, and it was very nice because we were literally the last ones, because we were able to pull over to the side and hook up the tow vehicle once we got off, and then I thought we were gonna have to wait because we were the last people, and they gave us like an express lane, which was super nice. And I think it was like, I don't know, from the time we got off the boat until now, it was like 10 minutes.
That experience was absolutely fantastic, and the way that the crew handles it, top notch.
So much fun. I highly recommend taking the CAT Ferry over. It was just an incredible experience.
We have just saved ourselves easily a full day's drive.
I know, we're in Nova Scotia. Like, this is awesome.
Boom.
Ah! And now we are driving to a harvest host for the evening. There is a brewery that's about 15 minutes away from the port, and we're gonna go grab a beer and relax for the night. The port town of Yarmouth is home to about 7,000 people, with its main industries being fishing and tourism. You might recognize the picturesque row of beautifully colored buildings as you stroll downtown. There are a few places to grab a bite to eat, and there's even a brewery with delicious craft beer. It is a small town, but definitely worth visiting and spending some time. We had one day to explore before hitting the road north, so we decided to take a road trip along the South Shore, which is rich with Acadian history. Our first stop was the famous Cape Forchu lighthouse. This is the lighthouse that we could see when we came in on the CAT Ferry. We got those great shots of it coming in on the boat.
So every day from 3 to 6 p.m., you don't need an advance reservation. You just pay your money, you go in there, you climb the steps.
In the late 1800s, Yarmouth was the second busiest port of registry in Canada, and Cape Forchu was the ideal spot for a lighthouse to help guide ships into the harbor. Its unique color and shape have earned it the nickname of the Apple Core Lighthouse, a design that was a bit controversial among locals here when the lighthouse had to be rebuilt in 1961. The structure strayed quite a bit from the more traditional wooden shape that had stood on the Cape since 1839.
So this guy is the original lightkeeper from the original lighthouse next door to the new Apple Core lighthouse under construction with the new lightkeeper all in one shot. Look at that.
Today, the station is owned and operated by the municipality of the District of Yarmouth and is still one of the main tourist destinations in this part of Nova Scotia.
Well, that was so different, and I'm so glad that we did it.
Yeah, we just had a very traditional Acadian meal. It was awesome. I like it.
Starting with the Rappie pie, it is nothing like you've ever had. The texture of the potatoes, as they explain, they take like 20 or 40 pounds of potatoes, shred them, squeeze all of the liquid and the starch out of it, and what you're left with is almost like a paste. And then they put back into it chicken stock, and it almost becomes like a gelatin.
Yeah, it's like congealed potatoes. And she was like, are you sure you want to order this whole thing? We sell a taste of it for $2. And they were telling us afterwards that most Americans won't eat it. We actually really liked it. We're like, oh no, we're gonna go for it. Like, bring us the whole piece. And by piece, it's a platter of this.
Yeah, one order of it is definitely enough for 2 people.
It was so good
Yeah,
though.
you've got to try it though. I mean, this is our first time ever having it, but this is clearly the best as far as I'm concerned.
It was so good. And then we had this scallop dish that was just smothered in mozzarella cheese. It was baked, oh my gosh.
With lobster.
Lobster sauce on top. Oh,
Yeah,
Oh, so decadent.
We also had the frico soup, which is, again, taking that kind of starchy potato and then they throw into it chicken and cut potatoes. So it's, again, a very hearty dish. We just consumed probably 5,000 calories and we didn't even know it.
But it makes sense, right? Think about like where we are right now. This is a fishing village, and so it has to be hearty because the fishermen were going out on the boats. It gets very cold. I mean, it's the end of June right now and it's chilly out.
You need to bulk up before you get on the boat.
What do you think?
Amazing. This is really the oldest wooden church?
Yeah. Normally you can pay $2 per person to go in and tour the church, but it's closed. It's definitely a bummer.
It says summer hours are 9 to 5 every day. Maybe it's not summer yet.
I know. I don't know. It's a while though.
Bummer.
The steeple is 185 feet tall, which is taller than the Statue of Liberty. So the church was built over a period of 2 years by 1,500 volunteers. That's absolutely incredible. And there are full trees in there. There are columns that are made out of full tree trunks that are 70 feet tall. We made it to Smuggler's Cove, which is a provincial park, and there's like a little pull off where you can look down over the cove. But during low tide, you can actually take steps down onto the beach.
We're like 2 hours after high tide, so the water has already receded down a decent amount. So I read there are about 200 steps that lead down to the beach, and if the tide is low enough, we should be able to walk along the beach to the cave. We'll see what happens.
The colors and shapes of these rocks are so cool. So the cove has had many names throughout the years, and Smuggler's Cove is the most common name for it, which is directly tied to the rum running during Prohibition. Didn't really wear the proper footwear for this, climbing on rocks. This is super cool though. The tide is unfortunately still too high for us to get over to the cave. It's way over there. But it's still really beautiful to see. Well, this has been such a nice way to ease into our Canadian road trip adventure. We had such a wonderful time exploring Yarmouth and this section of the Acadian shores, but it's time to pack up and hit the road to our next spot, which happens to be a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Well, we made it to our home for the evening here in beautiful Lunenburg, and we get to sleep at a brewery tonight.
Yeah, with an amazing view. It overlooks Lunenburg, and I can't wait for some beer and sunset.
I know, and it's great because we just get to like walk across the parking lot back home when we're done. So Lunenburg was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1995, and it's because they were able to preserve the historic fabric of the town.
And work is still ongoing. We see restoration even happening today, which is absolutely incredible that they've been able to preserve and maintain such a large collection of historic buildings, which are presently owned and operated by private individuals. There are businesses and shops and private residences in many of these structures.
And the detail on them is fascinating. Like if you walk around and just kind of like really stop and look at some of the detail, you'll see incredible woodworking and then just the paint on them. It's a beautiful town. And it's easy to see why one street is nicknamed UNESCO Fresco.
That was really interesting. And for a free museum, you learn a lot.
Yeah, they asked if we wanted to like walk around ourselves or take a little tour, and you always learn more from the tour guides, and we learned a whole heck of a lot, including some very superstitious stuff that was going on here in Lunenburg.
The other thing too was the cash crop of the area was flax, and something I would not have expected.
It makes sense if you think about it, because this area is so rocky, there isn't good soil for growing crops, and so somebody actually brought flaxseed in and it took off, it started to grow, and they were like, wow, we can actually make a lot of different things out of this. So everything from like sails to clothing. Yeah.
Clothing, yeah, it became really the singular crop of Lunenburg and was very popular. And then the oil, as you're probably aware, you can burn it. You can also consume it. There's medicinal purposes for it.
Another thing that we learned that I found just fascinating is looking at the city, and when you visit it, you know how hilly it is. And that was a big deal when they actually started populating and colonizing this area, because the people who originally came here were lied to and told that it was flat. And they get here and all of the lots are all different shapes and sizes and angles, and that presented a big problem.
We call it like a diorama, showing what the city actually is set up as and how incredibly hilly it was. So everyone was supposed to have a plot of land that was equal to everybody else's. Well, some were by the water, some were on hills, some were on 45-degree angles. How do you even build on that? It really was quite deceiving. I presume there's no takebacks, right?
Right, like you got your lot, you're stuck with it, figure it out, make it work. Wow, this is so intricate and beautiful. This is such a fascinating piece of history.
It is. Well, first of all, it's the second oldest Anglican church in all of Canada, but tragically in 2001, it suffered almost a complete loss where over 2/3 of the structure was damaged because of fire, and the stained glass windows, 15 out of the 16 stained glass windows, ultimately either had to be rebuilt entirely or replaced. The firefighters had to bust those windows out in order to get the hoses in order to try and save as much of the structure as they could. The water would flow from the church with the pieces from the windows, and they called it the Tears of St. John, and it flowed downhill, and so people went around and were collecting them from the gutters and were able to bring them back to the church. They would take the pieces and try and determine which of the windows they were from.
Wow.
And so they tried to reuse as much of the original glass as they could, but ultimately a lot of them reinvigorated sections with new glass. But all have been completely restored.
And it took about 4 years for them to complete the restoration on it, and about $7 million. And the reason that they were able to keep the historic significance of the building is because there was about 50% still intact, or that they could actually salvage from the original structure. And there's still parts and pieces of it, like there's original nails downstairs and some other fragments that they were able to salvage and keep on display in the church, including the original bell. Once the fire happened, the bell would no longer ring, but they've preserved it outside of the church, and it's a really nice photo op with the original bell in front of the church. And I asked them how the fire started or if they knew. There's a lot of speculation. It happened on Halloween night, and apparently there were nuisance fires by teenagers in the area, so that's one theory. Another theory could have been electrical or a boiler, so they just don't know, which also kind of adds to the mystique and the intrigue as to what happened.
But good on the town of Lunenburg for diligently working to restore and bring this back to life. And I mean, as you can see today, it is absolutely magnificent.
Only 91% voted to restore it, which I did find interesting.
Only 91%?
There was a very small percentage who I guess didn't want it to be rebuilt and restored. On our next episode, come along as we head to Cape Breton Island for history, culture, and of course lobster. Plus, we'll take you on one of the world's most scenic drives, the Cabot Trail. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you soon from the Maritimes of Canada.